I'd like to introduce Diego Zardaneta, our brilliant guitarist and comrade in the labor movement. He's from Mexico City and not only a great guitarist but an ethnomusicologist and very talented in many ways. The people made such a beautiful flyer, I thought it would be a good idea to frame the flyer and give a copy to Diego and a copy to Joe and Helena. So I'd like to give Diego his copy now, and we'll...
Thank you.
We're in your hands, Maestro. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm play a couple melodies on my guitar. This melody, this is for the children's choir and the children. Okay.
I have the honor to introduce our two authors. I've known Joe Barry since 1978 when he lost his job at Unified after Prop 13. I've known Helena less time, but she's his better two-thirds, and they're a great team. They're both PhDs, and but intellectuals of the people. Helena is a writer and activist, and her most recent work is entitled, "What Did You Learn at Work Today?" And that explains how collective learning takes place in the midst of conflict. And as labor unionists, we're accustomed to conflict. The book's based on her years of experience as a labor educator and intended for organizers and activists. After retiring from the University of Illinois, their labor education program, she and Joe had been teaching in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, in the Faculty of Labor Relations and Trade Unions at Tom Duc Thang University. And Dr. Berry is currently a member of the executive board of AFT 2121 at City College. His book, Outside Reclaiming the Ivory Tower, has been instrumental in helping people all across the country and the world even to organize adjunct faculty, part-timers who are trapped in low wage, low benefit, low respect situations. Joe is a retired labor educator, history teacher, and union organizer and staffer. And he's also active in the contingent faculty movement as a leader in the new faculty majority and the Coalition of Contingent Academic Labor, COCAL. And I honestly don't know of any individual who's done more to empower part-time faculty in the country and this continent than Joe Berry. I'd like to read a definition or a description of books by Barbara Tuchman, the great historian and writer. Books are the carriers of civilization. Without books, history is silent, literature dumb, science crippled, thought and speculation at a standstill. Without books, the development of civilization would have been impossible. They're engines of change, windows on the world, lighthouses, as the poet said, erected in the sea of time. They're companions, teachers, magicians, bankers of the treasures of the mind. Books are humanity in print. Joe and Helena are makers of books, creators of books, and they're also intellectuals of the people. That's a term I've always liked because I associate it with the Great Revolution in China. Like their lives, their writing instructs in a comradely way that humanity is always beyond ideology. But the best way to serve humanity is to understand why we must be part of the long journey and inevitable struggle for social and economic justice. St. Thomas Aquinas, probably not the favorite philosopher of many of us, said, "Justice has two beautiful sisters, hope and anger." Joe and Helena, in deeds and words, remind us that reasoned hope and righteous anger guide us to liberate ourselves as well as others and to walk with the people.
The plan is that I'm going to read a poem first, and then Joe is going to talk about his book. And then if there's time left over, I'll talk about my book, which is sitting out there. But I really wanted to read this poem because I have never read a poem in public before in my entire life. And
I don't believe it.
This is true, and it's now or never. Furthermore, this is a particular poem that tries to answer the question, who am I? How did I get to this particular place? What is this particular place, and what's going on here? And although the place in this poem is not here right now in San Francisco in the Redstone building with you, I could write exactly the same kind of poem about this moment right here. And I want to draw your attention to the fact that I make a lot out of what I am wearing and where I got it. And I suggest to you that you could think about how you got here, who these people are, and what you're wearing. What did it take to bring you here at this moment with these people at this time? This is actually a historic building. The place I'm talking about in Chicago is historic too. It's the Haymarket Monument. So any questions? Okay.
Go for it.
The name of the poem is How I Keep Warm at a Rally in Chicago in the Winter. It's December 8th, 2009. The snow has been falling since noon. By 3 p.m. it is dark. The sounds of traffic are muffled by snow. In my office, the phone rings. Hello, it's Denise. Is there class tonight? Of course. Why? It's snowing. They're letting us go at 3:30. Well, it's not snowing in the classroom. Are you going to the rally? Of course, aren't you? Are you kidding? Kathy and Linda, our office staff, appear in their coats at 3:40. It's snowing, we're leaving. Oh, I guess you're not going to the rally. No way, not us. Rally? No way. The rally is at 4:30. The class is at 5:30. Joe, who is wearing his blue cashmere Christmas present sweater, same sweater he's wearing today, will be teaching the 5:30 class. This is 2009, so that's how long his sweater has lasted. He says he probably won't go to the rally either. I think I'm coming down with something, he says. I leave at 4:15. The rally is 7 blocks from our office. The 7 blocks are magic. Every car carries a muffin top of snow. Every car is up to its axles in white slush. All the restaurants on Halsted are lit up. 4 guys from the Christian Industrial Workers Shelter are out shoveling the sidewalks. There is music playing, but because this is Greek town, it's not Christmas music, or if it is Greek Christmas music. Red and blue and green sparkly lights, including the lights of many fire trucks and many, many ambulances, cast beautiful glows upward into the soft air, down through which an infinite number of glittering white snowflakes drift gently. I cross over the I-90-94 bridge at Monroe and stop to admire through the snowflakes the river of beautiful red taillights of commuters on their way to the north suburbs and the river of beautiful diamond yellow headlights of commuters on their way to the south and west suburbs. They flow steadily along in each direction at about the speed of a person walking through deep snowdrifts. As I approach Randolph and Des Plaines, I see that the street is blocked off. Beyond the barriers, I see a crowd. There are many big men, very big men standing around, made even bigger by boots, hard hats, great gloves, huge warm jackets, and face masks. There are women, too, as I can see as I get closer. Many recognize me. We say, "You made it." The Haymarket Monument looks good in the snow. The quartzites above the speaker's platform lift it up and make it seem to float in the air. The way the white snow lies along the shoulders and backs of the dark metal bodies makes them more lifelike. The sculpted bodies are not all that different in the snow from the bundled bodies of the men standing in the street. I see plumbers, city workers, carpenters, heat and frost workers, laborers, state workers, nurses, telephone workers, grocery workers, teamsters, laundry workers, hotel workers. There are a lot of good people here, and some are my friends. Franklin Rosemont, the wobbly historian, is here with his wife Penny. My friend Tom Gradle is here because he is working on a project for the steelworkers, and one of the speakers, James, is expected to mention it. 6 women from the teachers, all wearing full-length fur coats, let me take their picture with their signs. It's International Human Rights Day, and this is a workers' rights rally. James, Dennis, Margaret, Tim, and 2 workers who have been fired for organizing make short speeches while the snow falls. People cheer. Here is how I keep warm on a night like this. Blue and white sweater, purchased approximately June 1986 at a tent market in northeast Iceland for $30. Given first to my father, who wouldn't wear it, reclaimed about 1987. Thick black and purple 2-ply plush mittens, given to me by daughter Gabi when we moved to Iowa in '95. Gray pile jacket with zipper pockets, left in Berkeley House by Adrian, strange fellow from New Zealand, friend of Gabi, who left a lot of other stuff there, approximately 1999. Items in pocket, cell phone, iPod, gift from son Jake, digital camera, Kleenex. Black Gore-Tex pants with ankle zippers, gift from husband Joe in 2000, intended for bike riding, but excellent over jeans for walking to work. Large plastic-bottomed slip-on shoes with suede tops, elastic at ankles, keeps the snow out, lined with shearling lamb, buckle under chin. Whoops, sorry. Good for slippery sidewalks, $24 in Champaign, Illinois, about 2001. Leather pilot's hat, lined with shearling lamb, buckle under chin, bought in 2003 at Pike's Market in Seattle for $69. Very warm, good for holding iPod earplugs in place, bad for haircut, gift of Joe. Paisley wool shawl, 6 feet by 3 feet, red, ochre, olive, extremely beautiful, on loan from Gabi, unfortunately went through the wash. The point is that you cannot simply go out on a night like this and buy an outfit. The components of what keeps me warm have been collected over many years, tested, exchanged, repurposed, matched, and adapted. They come from many sources. They are put to uses for which they were not originally intended. Like this crowd, which has increased to about 150, someone near me is counting, a good winter outfit takes a lot of organizing, a lot of seeing possibilities, salvaging what might have gone unappreciated, breaking a few rules, putting things together that don't belong together. Here where we stand under the twinkling, drifting snow, Haymarket has taken over 120 years to get a monument so that people could say, meet me at the Haymarket Monument. It took 120 years, but now we can. And now that we're here, the snow takes center stage. It's joyful. It's beautiful. 150 is not a lot of people. Denise isn't here. Kathy and Linda aren't here. Joe isn't here. But the people who are here are glad to see each other, and I'm warm.
This is also the first time I ever heard her read that poem all the way through. So this is kind of a pastiche. Blame Roger and the coalition for that. The book that I wrote, as Roger mentioned, is called Reclaiming the Ivory Tower: Organizing Adjuncts, who are now 75% of the teachers of college students in the United States. Contingent faculty of one sort or another. And well over half in the community colleges, including City College. I didn't plan on doing this, but as Roger mentioned, when I was laid off from the public schools after Prop 13, I ended up teaching part-time at City College and have been teaching teaching as a contingent in higher education in various forms ever since. And I was lucky enough to be able to retire, partly because I had enough sense to marry a woman who owned a house in Berkeley, which is very helpful when it comes to wanting to retire. Just to give people a little sense of, it's sort of amazing that this is the only book that's ever been written on this subject. Organizing. Enough books have been written to fill this room on the subject of contingent faculty, mostly from the point of view of administrators and how to manage them and how to use them and how to make money off us and that sort of thing. But this is the only book that's been written on how to organize us and how we might change our situation. For those of you who are don't necessarily know, let me read a little bit from the introduction, which is basically a few short stories of our lives. An old friend tells me about an old friend of his who just got a tenured position at the University of California campus. Pretty unremarkable occurrence until you realize that this particular acquaintance had been a temporary, full and part-time college teacher for well over a decade. In that time, he'd published 4 books, a couple of them actually bestsellers in the field, and won a MacArthur Genius Award. This newly job-secure professor actually had to be a certified genius before he could get a permanent teaching job in a college in the second largest metropolitan area of the United States, Southern California. At a conference of contingent faculty from all over North America, after a few drinks, the talk turns to retirement. No one in the discussion is under 30, and most are well over 40, and this was written a few years ago, so they're all well over 50 now. One New Yorker, after listening for a time, drops his one-liner. My only retirement plan is a bullet in my dresser drawer. This is a local one. Afterwards, I'll tell you who the protagonist is. In one of the largest community colleges in the United States, a small group of part-time faculty has just finished their conversation with the college vice president in his office. As they rise to leave, the vice president pulls the leader, a longtime teacher with a PhD, aside and in a low voice tells him, "You know, I really support what you're trying to do for part-timers, but you should realize that you're not considered faculty, or even people. You're units of flexibility." This was the then Vice President of City College of San Francisco speaking to Roger Scott back in the late 70s, early 80s. And story told to me by Roger. By the way, all these stories, none of these are urban legends or apocryphal. They were all told to me by people who heard it themselves. A letter arrives at many Chicago area college department offices offering a new commercial services, pre-screening and referring adjuncts to college hiring officials. Investigation reveals this is an attempt at a startup by an adjunct who can't get a tenure-track job. An artist, who also teaches at 2 colleges, is denied part of her unemployment insurance claim against one of the colleges because she supposedly has, quote, reasonable assurance of reemployment, unquote, for the following term, which, of course, she does not. Partially as a result, she can't pay her apartment rent, has to move illegally into her art studio. Another one. After 25 years of teaching, often more than full-time, but at multiple institutions, a community college part-timer discovers he never received enough service credit for vesting in the pension system. Only his actual time in the classroom was counted as working hours, unlike full-time faculty, so he does not qualify for a pension at all. That is the story from California, from the STRS system, which has now been changed through the result of decades, literally decades of struggle to get the STRS regulations changed so that people got credit for more than just classroom hours in their service credit.
And much of that struggle was by Joe leading
Well,
it.
I was part of the beginning of it, but the person who was most responsible for it is a guy also from San Francisco named Cliff Lay, who just died recently and saw that struggle to its positive conclusion. I call this section, even two makes a committee. And this is, remember, the key audience are my colleagues, right? I should have asked all of you, how many of you in this room have college degrees? How many of you have advanced degrees, but beyond a bachelor's or okay. How many of you, keep your hands up, how many of you have used those degrees at some point to teach part-time or otherwise in higher education? Okay, all right, so. And that is always the case in any group, right? It's a huge number of people. I mean, it's maybe 1 million at any given time, but it's millions of people who've had this experience, right? Unfortunately, the majority have not yet been touched by the organizing movement. Our years of schooling tends to convince us that the best way to change anything is to learn all we can about it and then write up our findings and conclusions in the most balanced, rational, complete, and detailed way we can. That's what we learn in graduate school. We have been conditioned to think that finding the full truth about something, whether in our own academic field or our employment situation or the world in general, will make us free all by itself. The entrance to City College says that, right? The truth will make you free. Unfortunately, that is not the case. My father, a teacher for over 40 years, from secondary level to graduate school, used to tell me that too much formal education tended to make people lose their common sense. He blamed formal education for the fact that it took most teachers until the 60s and 70s to realize that they needed a union, when most carpenters had figured that out by 1900. The idea that individually knowing the truth will make you free, without any collective action on our part, was an example to him of that loss of common sense. Luckily, even the overeducated can still learn, sometimes painfully and slowly. The key to this learning is doing it together. So your first step is not to study or write an article. The first step is to find a partner. Combining efforts with another person is much more than doubling your own power and resources. You not only generate ideas and energy from the other person, you start to build a base for a worker organization, mutual self-help, and solidarity between fellow workers. This relationship is what makes it possible to keep going when we're discouraged, helps us avoid the mistakes we can make when we're angry or afraid, and gives us a wider network of people to relate to than any of us have individually. The second step is to form a committee, even if it's only a committee of 2. The failure of many of our colleagues to understand this is one reason why more has been written about our situation than has been done to change it. Helena, my spouse and non-tenure track faculty colleague, likes to tell the story of how after she got actively involved in her AFT local at a California community college part-time English teacher, Peralta, across the bay, she was told by one of her mentors, writing is not organizing. It took a while for her to figure out what that meant, but she came to embrace it. Of course, we need to write. Articles, newsletters, books, leaflets, picket signs, emails, contracts, grievances, even manifestos. But what moves people into action isn't writing, but the communication that builds relationships and makes information meaningful. Writing is part of that communication, but not the only part. And in seeking a partner, you may find some surprises. You might find that the person who complains the most may not be willing to do anything. You may find that your closest friend is not willing to take this step. You may find your first partner sitting at the desk next to you in the gang office, or across the campus in another department. You may find her when she asks provocative or brave questions at a meeting called by the administration, or a faculty development function. You may find him through a letter to the editor in the school newspaper, or through a friend who's themselves afraid to act, but gives you a tip that so-and-so is talking some of the same crazy ideas you are over in the business department. There may be tenure-track faculty member who slips you a note telling you that Cynthia over in biology or theater was asking questions about what rights we might have as adjuncts. A contingent colleague may also work at a nearby unionized college and be interested in organizing. The key is to find someone to start. Now you have a committee. You can start to plan how to move, which means finding other people, developing issues, and educating yourself. And I would argue that that process is the essence of a union, of any union. Not the structure, not the treasury, not the recognition by the employer, not the contract. That relationship of solidarity and a willingness to stand up for each other. That's the kernel of any workers' organization, trade union in particular.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.